Hi, my name is Megan Dugan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a mom of 3. I'm about to graduate with my degree in social work, and I am a lifelong storyteller, story reader, and basically will talk to anyone that will listen to me. So now you guys will have to listen to me. All right. Before we ever carved letters into stone or traced words on paper, we told stories. Before symbolic language, there was petroglyphs, spirals, hands, animals, sun shapes, messages carved into the skin of the earth. There were oral traditions carried in breath and drumbeat, in the cadence of voice and listening of hearts. So, when someone says that listening to an audiobook isn't, quote, really reading, remember, listening is the oldest way we've ever read. For thousands of years, we have read the world through sound, through voice, through rhythm, and silence. To listen is to join an unbroken lineage of human connection, a tradition older than ink itself, older than paper, older than writing. Stories are how we learned what courage looks like, how kindness feels, how to be human together. In every culture, story was our first teacher. Long before we had laws or liturgies, we had stories to make sense of light and darkness, good and evil, love and loss. They taught us to live in gratitude, balance, and reciprocity with one another and with the earth that sustains us. In Hopi mythology, Dawa, the sun spirit, sings the earth into being, a world woven by spider woman's web, nourished by corn mother's body, and watched over by Masawa, the keeper of fire. Creation itself is a living story, one that teaches that life is not owned but shared, not conquered but cared for. Across the world, the same truth echoes. The Navajo or the Dene, Bahane teaches harmony and beauty, or hoso. The griots of West Africa hold memory to heal the living, and the Old Testament in Genesis begins not with a command, but with a story. In the beginning. Every story from every people has a way of remembering that we belong to one another, to something larger than ourselves. Story is not an ornament to human life. It is human life. The ongoing dialogue between creation and consciousness. As writer Adam Gopnik observes, we tell stories because they make us make sense of life's randomness, and then they turn accidents into sequences, and then the sequences into meaning. Stories are how we make chaos livable. Our first act of science, our oldest experiment in finding meaning. Stories are the most human thing about us. They are how we practice being human. When I read stories to my children, I am reminded that what they want most isn't the ending, it's the connection, the warmth of voice, the rhythm of safety, the knowing they are not alone. And I think that is true for all of us. In the Western literary canon, think of Huckleberry Finn, that wild boy on the Mississippi, raised in a racist world, who befriends Jim, an enslaved man. Huck learns to listen to the quiet voice of conscience, even when it costs him everything he's ever been taught. Think of Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, walking the yellow brick road. Every friend she meets, the scarecrow, the tin man, the lion, shows her a part of herself. By the end, she discovers what she's searching for is courage, love, wisdom, and a home, which were all inside her all along. Holden Caulfield in The Catcher in the Rye shows us that sarcasm and disillusionment can hide tenderness, longing. Tom Joad in The Grapes of Wrath begins with a self-interested man, but ends as a voice for justice. Proof that conscience can grow even out of hardship. And of course, Scout Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird learns that kindness sometimes stands trial in its own hometown. Her father, Atticus, becomes her moral compass. And Boo Radley, the quiet neighbor, reveals how often goodness hides behind the walls of fear. Each of these stories asks the same question: how do we live with courage and kindness? And they remind us that being human is both fragile and miraculous. But we wrestle with what is right and what is real, remembering who we are and who we still hope to become. So that brings us today to my favorite creation story. In the early 1800s, scientists sought to decode the very nature of life, to uncover what they called the spark. Advances in chemistry and electricity hinted that life itself may be generated or even reanimated through scientific means. This was the age of galvanism, where researchers believed they could, with a jolt of electricity, they can awaken dead tissue. Luigi Galvani's experiments made frogs' legs twitch with currents, and his ideas would later form the foundation of modern neuroscience and electrophysiology. Into this charged atmosphere stepped an 18-year-old writer named Mary Shelley. Surrounded by poets, philosophers, and scientists, and haunted by her own grief over death and childbirth, she began to wonder if humanity could master the forces of life itself, what would that power reveal about us? Her answer became Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus. Written amid the electricity craze of her time, is considered by many the first work of science fiction. A story that fused myth and modernity, imagination and experiment. Prometheus, stealing the fire from the gods, became Victor Frankenstein, seizing divine fire through science, and the human attempt to create life without love, to claim the role of creator while abandoning the responsibility of care. Her novel became a mirror for modern humanity, asking, if we spark life, should we? What happens when creation outpaces compassion? And what makes us human? Is it the spark itself? Or is it what we do with the spark? So when we open Frankenstein, we meet Victor, young, brilliant, restless. He is not evil. He is human. And what begins as curiosity becomes obsession. He succeeds in creating life in an instant. The instant the creature begins to breathe, he recoils. The creature, nameless and newborn, reaches out for its maker in wonder and confusion. But Victor turns away. Horrified by his own work, that single act, creation without compassion, becomes the seed of the story's tragedy. The creature he made wanders the world, learning language, morality, tenderness from afar. He watches a poor family in the woods and dreams of kindness, of being welcomed. Then comes the scene that breaks the heart. A young child, still untouched by fear, offers the creature a flower. The petals tremble in his hand. One fragile, fleeting moment when innocence meets loneliness, and suddenly grace appears. But then the adults arrive. The recoil and terror drive him away. The petals fall, and we understand that the true monstrosity lies not in the creature's form, but in the hearts that refuse to see him. Shelley's genius lies in this very reversal, that the monster becomes the most human figure in the book, sensitive, self-aware, and desperate for belonging. Victor, the creator, grows monstrous through isolation and pride. By the time they face one another, again, they are both haunted by what they made and what they lost. The story's arc bends not towards victory, but recognition that knowledge without empathy destroys the maker and what is made. Shelley seems to ask us, what is our responsibility to what we create? Our children, our inventions, our ideas? And what happens when creation outpaces its care? 2 centuries later, those questions still echo in every discovery, from artificial intelligence to genetic engineering. We hear the pulse of Shelley's warning. Progress without conscience is perilous, but fear without compassion is just as dangerous. Like all great stories, Frankenstein holds up a mirror. It shows us our hunger to know, our terror of being known, and our longing to be loved just as we are. The story returns to ourselves, the fragile art of creating life in love, creating life with love in it, the humility of knowing that every act of making, every invention, every story carries the heartbeat of responsibility. Mary Shelley's tale remains our own tale, a parable about the cost of forgetting our humanity in the ego's pursuit of greatness, and the redemption that begins the moment we remember it. Today, our laboratories glow brighter than ever. We build machines that can think and edit genes, and we can rewrite life and craft digital worlds where connection blurs into code. In the end, both Victor and his creature are undone, but not by modern science, but by loneliness, one of our deepest and most enduring human wounds. We are here again at the crossroads Shelley imagined, where imagination and ambition outpace our readiness to hold them. Like Victor, we are creators of astonishing power, and like him, we are haunted by the question, what happens when what we make begins to mirror us back? Every act of creation, whether born in a lab, a poem, or a government policy, is also an act of moral authorship. We must ask not only can we, but should we? And once we have, how will we love what we've made? Stories that help us live inside that question, that keep the soul in the circuitry. They remind us that every invention, like Victor's creature, is not a product of our hands, but a mirror of our own longing, fear, and hope. Even science, with all its precision, is a kind of storytelling, a tale of wonder and risk of what happens when curiosity outruns caution. So from the lightning bolt that animated Frankenstein's creature to the algorithms shaping our lives today, each age of discovery carries both awe and unease. Every breakthrough asks us again, what happens when we create something that begins to outgrow our own control? Mary Shelley asks us with trembling brilliance 2 centuries ago, and we ask it again now that artificial intelligence learns to write, paint, and compose. But with a deeper fear beneath the fascination with machines is not that they will surpass us, is that they may render us unnecessary. And yet, as Professor Angus Fletcher reminds us, that will never be the case. No matter how vast their data or fluent their mimicry, machines cannot think narratively. They cannot feel contradiction or longing. They cannot hold the tension between what is and what could be. They calculate probabilities, but they cannot wonder. They know patterns, but they cannot know hope. We, on the other hand, we live in story. We inhabit time, remembering, imagining, regretting, dreaming. We shape chaos into coherence and call it meaning. To be human is to live, to reflect, to leave behind the imprint of our existence, to tell what we've seen, felt, loved, and lost. And as scholar Hugh Anthony reminds us, your story is about your humanity and not your status. Stories are humanity's currency, the way we remember that we are more alike than different. So when I read to my children tonight, I'll remember. Stories are our first technology of love, the way we hold each other across time. So may we keep telling stories. May we tell them with courage, with curiosity, with love. May we remember the true miracle of creation was not the lighting in a lab or a spark in a wire. It was, and it will always be, the spark between two hearts saying, here is my story, tell me yours. And when we truly listen, we join the same living thread that began with breath and drumbeat, still weaving in us together, story by story, into the great remembering of what it means to be alive, or rather, alive!